So I've been thinking about a lot about the next Civil War based on what's been going on in the previous few, uh, with special attention towards what happened in Iraq between 2003 and roughly 2018. And I saw a few trends beginning to emerge. I'd like to show you some of these. Okay, so this was from Sky News. This is a Silverado, uh, we assume, that it's been modified into an armored vehicle. You'll notice that the use of these bars in the front, that's for causing RPGs and other anti-vehicle rounds to detonate prematurely. We use those on U.S. tanks as well. And this relatively thin-looking plate armor, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be good enough to stop most small arms rounds. He points at the driver's window. There's actually bullet-resistant glass in there. And overall, this is really a very smart design. This would easily have penetrated through a U.S. military checkpoint, and perhaps more ominously, in the back, the entire bed had been converted to an armored cargo compartment. That's where something like 2,000 pounds of plastic explosives had been hidden, or had been placed to prepare this to be a suicide bomb. This was actually very well built. He's going to point out that this cabin is separated. There's no explosives in here because if those explosives were prematurely detonated, it would have killed the driver. Having it in a wholly separate compartment or unit, if it is prematurely detonated, it'll blow the entire bed off, but that's it. And then the driver could potentially escape. Now, this is particularly interesting because it's all improvised armor. The whole thing was just some junkyard scrap metal, really, probably taken off of industrial equipment body. But it was actually more than sufficient to stop all small arms rounds, and could have, at the very front, taken on anti-vehicle rounds as well. This is a Humvee that's been modified with a howitzer, actually, literally welded to the bed. The arc of fire is, or traverse rather, it's a little bit limited, and the arc may be somewhat limited in its declination, but this puts a whole lot of firepower into a very small package, and one that's relatively hard to hit with anything other than small arms fire. You put the same gun into an armored or field armored unit, such as that previously shown car bomb, you would have something that could be pretty devastating in a limited conflict, such as we're about to see a whole lot more of. This is footage from the front lines, I believe, in Libya. These are improvised mortar rounds. They were made, it appears, out of propane tanks. He's hand fitting the fuse here. But what really made this system particularly curious, and you've seen the first clue already, is they offloaded several, like a truckload. Watch this. This is the first firing. Oh, wait, another? Yeah. This is what the British refer to as a barracks buster. And in the past, these were always one-time use only weapons. Fire it once, and then you run away. They weren't even intended for multiple rounds, and yet here they are, having built a barracks buster that was more than capable of firing, oh my God, there's at least 20 shells in there. This isn't even really terribly great engineering. Modestly impressive ingenuity. The really impressive part was that they were able to get this this improvised artillery so that it could fire repeatedly. That is definitely another level. And you can even see when you look at the carriage that this thing is very much improvised. That's I-beams that have been welded together. They're held together with a clamp. This one's not even held together with a clamp. And yet they're firing 3-4 times at least, that we see. Putting all of these things together, we're going to see that next generation of what they call asymmetric warfare will be a whole lot of improvised armored vehicles, improvised tanks. They aren't going to be good enough to go head-to-head with an M1 or any of the other NATO tanks. They may or may not be able to go head-to-head with Russian main battle tanks, what we're seeing out of Ukraine. It's a definite maybe under very, very fortunate circumstances. What we're seeing out of Ukraine, let's just be honest here, drones made a hell of a war, didn't it? The more tanks and armored vehicles and other vehicles combined were lost to drone attacks than, as far as I know, everything else combined. These are relatively cheap, like less than $100 machines, and they basically tore the Russian army apart. And that's not even counting what happened a couple weeks ago. So I think we're all going to be in for a very, very long and uncomfortable period.